None guys, I'm Aaron, and this is Benny, and this is Aaron Jessup Restorations. Obviously a lot of you already know who I am or what I do, and for those that don't, I specialise in restoring 90s, 80s, 2000s vintage Hondas. We thought we'd start with a YouTube channel, mainly because it's going to make life a lot easier for me rather than consistently answering the same question that I get asked 100 million times by PM on basically how we restore a Honda, why we restore the Hondas the way that I actually do. Obviously they do last. We established this company in 2013 as a full-time business. I'm still going today. It's July 2026 I think. Tend to lose track of time when you basically work 7 days a week pretty much all the time. So just give you a quick walkie around the workshop. There we go. I'm not going to give you a full mega tour. I am exceptionally busy like always at the minute. Obviously we have a Bullmax, all my panel making gear. We've got an electric powered bead roller, MIG welder, got a full size English wheel with a mini English wheel rammed on the side, air planching hammer, hydraulic press, have a box and pan folder. You can see in the corner there next to my orange beast we have a foot operated stretcher shrinker. We've got an ongoing car that's been here for a couple of years now. It's virtually finished. This is Taran's UK spec Integra Type R. Obviously you've got my orange thing, which basically nobody ever sees, even well, I see it every day because it doesn't move. It just lives here. I will actually get round to doing a video of this at some point, or have just an episode featuring it specifically. It's my B20 VTEC. It's fairly well known here in the UK. It was a race car it's been a race car since about 2006 when it was originally built by its first owner. It's a B20 VTEC, 252 brake horsepower, and yeah, I've spent years building it and I never get to use it because I just spend all my time working on everybody else's car. Not that it's a bad thing, it pays for the beer. Obviously I've got Kevin's car here at the minute. That came in for, it's a car we built 8 years ago. It's come in for a bonnet repaint, ring repaint. It's had a new metal sunroof fitted. Kevin has now left and disappeared, moved to Dubai permanently. So this is the car that is for sale. If you're interested, give me a shout. Right, that's a quick workshop tour. I'm sorry it's so cramped in here. I've got the door shut. Normally we'll move Kevin's car out so I've got a bit more space. We also actually have a white DC2 that's currently in high build primer in the booth. So obviously that's drying now. It's literally just half an hour. So those that don't know, obviously we take Hondas in from customers and we do nut and bolt rebuilds. Well, significant amount of welding. So obviously you'll send a car in to me, preferably stripped out or in drivable condition, depending on what you want. Obviously we tend to do a lot of welding so we can spend, or de-rusting them, can take a considerable amount of time and effort. You know, they're 30 years old now, most of them. Most welding that's previously been done to a lot of them, because they were at one point a cheap car, they tend to end up bodged or just plated. So obviously we do a significant amount of welding. Now, obviously you can't buy panels for these, or you never used to be able to get panels for the Integra Type Rs. So nobody was making them, I couldn't get them. So in the end, we actually ended up, or started investing in about the third or fourth year of business into actual panel making tools. So we started off with a foot stretcher shrinker, and then obviously the equipment's grown as the needs have grown. As we tried to make more complicated panels, obviously we need to increase it. The newest addition is the Bullmax. I do use it, but obviously it's finding time to make more tooling for it. But I will do a separate video on how that works and what we can do with it. It's basically, or its main use at the minute is for shrinking larger panels, because obviously we're limited. The foot operated stretcher shrinker will shrink panel, but it will not shrink panel deep or as deep as a Bullmax will. And obviously if we show you the video, you'll understand. So why, well, we'll start with so basically biggest questions Well, typical question we get asked, or I get asked absolutely loads, with regards mainly to the panels. The first main question is, do I sell smaller sections? I could sell the smaller sections, and I'm not going to sell a smaller section. There's one main reason. This is a car, I'm pretty sure this is actually Taron's Black Car Arch. This is what it comes in to me as. So it comes in, and I normally get the story of, from almost everybody, it's not that bad, it's just a bit in the corner, it's a bit in the middle, or it's fine in the middle, or it's just a little bit down there. But then when we actually remove the panel, obviously it's always significantly worse. So obviously we can pretty much guarantee everything down here will be rotten, all your inner sill supports will be rotten, your end cap will be rotten. Even though it doesn't look rotten on the outside, you start working your way around that arch lip, obviously you will have rust forming everywhere. So even if we did just, or if you're tight and lazy and you just did the back corner and that bit, you've still got all the brown rust there. And the worst thing is that Honda in the factory, they actually put, not only do they seam seal a lot of them, they actually put a black glue in there as well. So they glue the panel, then it's assembled on the factory and it's spot welded at the same time. The problem is you can pour as much cavity wax or whatever rust killer or magic stuff you want into that, it is not going to permeate that layer or that sealant and get into that arch lip. So basically it is a ticking time bomb. So what you generally end up happening is, if you only change 2 small sections rather than doing it properly and doing it once, basically you'll have those done, it'll look great for 2-3 years, the rust is going to continue to spread, work under there, and next thing you know, 3-4 years down the line, you know you spent 2-3 grand having the car done, and it's blabbing out with rust all over again, and then you're back to square one where you're paying to have the same job that should have been done properly in the first place done again. So the answer is yes, I can make smaller sections, but I will not sell them and I will not do them for that obvious reason. It's the same on every single arch, and this is this biggest issue we have with just about every car, because you literally see, when you see that little bit of arch rust in the corner, it doesn't matter what Honda it is, 99 times out of 100 they will be fucked, or they'll be pushing on that, you know, they're gone. They need doing properly, and realistically the only true fix, you need to cut every single last piece of rust out of the car. So that's normally all the inner arch and absolutely everything else. Obviously we do sell the panels, so we sell them as a full panel like so. We mainly, obviously the reason why we sell them is because obviously I have a massive waiting list for actual jobs on site. At the minute we're easily looking at a 2-year wait list if you add to the list now. More realistically, because I'm obviously trying to get rid of cars just to get down to a single customer's car here, one big job, and maybe have a smaller job on the go. You know, it would be probably more than likely that would be an existing customer that had a car done 3-4 years ago and just wants some touch-up work doing, or something else along those lines. You know, it's not going to be a full massive strip down. There are a significant amount of hours, which brings me to the next question we get asked, and the one I get asked most: how much is it going to cost me? So frequently asked question 1, how much roughly to do a full car with me? It's typical arch rust and stuff. Really variable answer you're going to get from me. It's going to be somewhere realistically between £10,000 to £20,000. You know, you're talking between 200-350 hours work in them. Again, the biggest variable is how rotten is your car. I won't know, even by photos, I won't know until obviously we cut into it, till we strip it all the way back to bare metal. Has it had previous damage on the panels? That obviously adds to the time. There can be rust hiding behind windscreens and stuff. If it's been welded before, what sort of job has been done? We see this no end with the Mark II CRXs. The last 2 have been, I mean, just look back on the page. I mean, Ian's car that was restored, he'll tell you all about the garage that restored it or sold it as a restored car. That was basically packed full of hairy filler and what looked like a solid car, which we were expecting to maybe be, you know, 3-4 grand's worth of work for a couple of quarters, was significantly more. But that is basically the nature of the beast with this. And you need to commit. If you either want the car restoring properly, we won't cut corners, I won't cut corners. You know, there are other shops out there that will work to a specific budget, but anyone that restores cars well for a living they will literally charge on the same basis that I do, and it's basically however long it takes at our normal hourly rate plus whatever the materials are, and it's that simple. So again, until we cut it apart, we don't know, but as a rough guide, at my current £45 an hour, you will generally be between £10,000 and £20,000. So the whole point of doing this as a video series is basically it's twofold. One, it's a really good way of showing you exactly the process I follow or start taking a car in from a full rolling shell and obviously stripping it all down, doing all the welding, why we weld in the way we do, why we're really ruthless with the rust, how we obviously make all the panels as we go along, and then obviously do all the paint side of it as well. So that's the main reason. Obviously it gives you a really good guide to work to, really realistic expectation of when somebody that knows what they're doing is doing it, roughly how long it's going to take. The second reason we're doing it is obviously as you well know, I make and sell the panels for the CRXs. We make plenty for the Integra Type Rs, so the DC2. Just about to expand the DC5 range, so inner arches are on the way for those guys. Loads of you have been asking, oh, we really make some inner arches for the DC5s. Don't worry, the pattern's done. So next frequently asked question is, or one you're probably all gagging to know, am I going to start with the CRX or am I going to start with the DC2? Really, I'm not sure yet. The potential problem is it was supposed to be a DC2. Now, obviously I've got a long waiting list, and I've had a customer that's been waiting just for an arch job on his DC2, and he chased me again about 6 months and said, you know, really busy, obviously backlogged. I mean, last year's panel sales were absolutely insane. Literally I was, you know, from the start of 2025 or the end of 24, 25, I was literally taking an order, and as soon as I'd made those panels, I then had 2 more orders, and it just continued like that. And it got to the point, you know, I'm only just catching up with this backlog a year later. It's just been absolutely insanity with people ordering. Don't know what's wrong with you. Why has everyone suddenly decided at once to restore your cars? You know, I'm not all complaining, but there you go. So obviously it's delayed all the cars here. So hopefully next, it should be a DC2 I start with, but the guy's not come back to me. I'm going to give it another week, and if he hasn't come back to me by that point, because obviously I'm not too far off finishing the one in the booth and Taryn's is almost done, I realistically potentially could take the next person on the list, and that is a CRX. It's a fairly large CRX job. I'd prefer to start with the DC2 because obviously I sell more panels, but you know, when you've got people that have waited 2-3 years to have their car come here for the thing, you know, they're next on the list, and it's just the way it's going to fall for that one. So yeah, happy days, more CRXs. How many cars have I restored over the years? We don't just do Hondas. Obviously I specialise in Hondas because, you know, they're a bug of mine. I've always had them, always probably will do. We have had other cars. I mean, the oldest thing I've done, we've almost completely restored, like a pre-war 1932, I think it was, MGM type. And again, photos are on the page if you look back. I've done other vintage cars from the 60s, 70s. I've done 1.5 Alfa Romeo Giulias. They're definitely eye-opening when you're doing cars from that era, especially when it comes to panel gaps, and the production line had very generous tolerances between cars. That's all we'll say. E-Type Jag, again, done one of those. I do not do another one of them. They're just, yeah, if you're going to do an E-Type Jag, you need to be doing it properly, and basically I would recommend probably rebodying the entire car so you've actually got a good base to start with. But yeah, race cars, again, loads and loads of race cars. Obviously JP Cages is only up the road from me, so you know, when he's really, really busy, he'd send a lot of the sort of rally cars with the 13 or 32 point roll cages in to have the interiors done. We obviously still have race car customers from when I used to do work for Andy Waters. Again, they come in every couple of years or every season, some of them quite a few times a year depending on the race series they're in. So again, we do MX-5s, BMW compacts and stuff. So it's not just Hondas I do on that. It's a hard life, isn't it, mate? It's so hard being here all day, isn't it, Benny? You tell them. Yeah? You're just disappointed you've got nobody to bark at, aren't you? Yes, you are. You can just tell how fed up you are. Right, obviously when we take a car in, we don't just do the paint and body. Obviously we get a lot of customers send a car driving in, we'll take the engine out, we'll do all the engine bay, we'll do all the mechanicals. We obviously can strip all the car down to pretty much component form, obviously rebush it all. We have a very large sandblasting cabinet there, which is a bonus for obviously blasting all the suspension arms because we get to reuse the grit, and general rule of thumb anyway, it keeps most of the grit down. It's already bad enough trying to keep this place as dust free as it is, and that's a loose way of describing it in here. But yes, you know, we obviously restore all the suspension bits and bobs as well. We do a lot of mechanical work and stuff. The only thing I'll pretty much draw the line at the minute is obviously gearbox work. I really hate disassembling gearboxes, and obviously engine rebuilds. I can rebuild engines. I can also map engines because obviously we've years and years and years of messing about with Hondata and Neptune RTP and other things. Obviously I draw the line at that. I can do it, I choose not to because obviously we have to bleed a lot of the work off because I've got no space for engineering machinery like bore hones and big CNC jobs, so we'll use a third party for that. So again, it's about the only one thing I don't currently offer is things like that, and then obviously custom fabrication and stuff. I can do it for things like engine mounts when we're doing engine swaps. I mean, obviously I've got a hydraulic 475 EK9 gearbox in this, rather than mess about with different mounts. Obviously we use the Hasport alloy mount that came on the EK9 box, and obviously we just made custom brackets and welded that into the frame rail rather than swap back to a CRX style mount. So it's just easier rather than buy new bits, because the engine was out, you know, we'll just swap it. But yeah, that's about the only one thing I don't offer. Obviously the places that do custom exhaust, the only other thing we won't paint as a general rule of thumb will be alloy wheels. There are so many people out there now that do just alloy wheels as a business. Realistically, they do it at such a good price, there's no way I can match it, obviously doing it by hand. So, you know, I'll leave them to that. So yeah, alloy wheels I don't do. Certain things like exhaust fab don't do. Engine rebuilds I don't do. I can do them, but I'm just not going to. Obviously I'm busy enough as it is. Right, nice little tidbit for the DC5 owners. I've been pestering for years for these. Obviously inner rear arch. This is obviously first pattern. Well, it's actually about the third or fourth. You'd be surprised at how many attempts we need to do to obviously get it to a relatively close standard. Obviously they're in two halves on the DC5, pretty much the same as they are on an EP3. Funnily enough, I do actually have an EP3 due in for welding at some point, so it will be nice to pop that in. Same with my FN2 as well. Keep an eye out for that in future episodes, because obviously I need to go underneath that and completely de-rust the thing before it actually starts getting really bad. But yeah, DC5, no pricing on these yet. Obviously I need to actually start making a batch, but they're in two halves. So the worst part, which is the back half, obviously your fuel, this is the passenger side, so your fuel filler neck extras here, but that, I mean, that's plenty of arch. That's more than you're probably going to need. And then obviously I'm currently patterning up the front half. We've actually got the paper template and I'm halfway through making that, so as soon as I've got that finished, I will obviously release the price for that and a rough ETA on them. And I'm currently, as far as I'm aware, the only place in the world that actually makes a correct fitting CRX arch for Mark II. Obviously we've got all the correct bends in at the bottom there. The radius is right. Everything matches. These are the actual arches we fit to a CRX. I did do a very small batch of these at Christmas. Most of them have shipped now. I've only got one pair left to go. This is part of that person's order, but he's in absolutely no rush for them, hence why there's a bonus. It's just here. Obviously it does fit and it's got all the right bends to actually take the trim. As far as I'm aware, Wolf Steel in Canada, who do produce a panel, theirs are pretty much correct, but the downside is they don't have the correct bend here. And I think the biggest problem they've got is they got a template for a Mark II CRX, but they don't actually have a panel there to work off. I'm sure if somebody actually pulled their finger out in America or Canada and sent them a panel, they'd be able to pattern it properly. But yes, from far as we know from other people that have restored them and posted videos of them and shown the issue with them, the Wolf Steel does have the correct kink in it. However, it's flat. It doesn't actually kick out to fit the trim, whereas mine obviously does. So yeah, they're about 95% correct. So you can pretty much bang that on and you're going to have a fairly easy time getting everything to line up and fit, obviously. It'd be nice if they were 100%, but yeah, I'm not that good, unfortunately, guys. I have to draw the line at 95%, I'm afraid. Next really frequent question I get is, who taught me to make panels? Basically, at the end of the day, I taught myself how to make panels. It's not entirely true, but I've never actually sat down with somebody who showed me how to make a panel. Fortunately, obviously, as technology has progressed over the years, and with YouTube videos, prime example, such a wealth of knowledge out there from people that do this for a living and know what they're doing. I really like, if people always ask me, well, who do I follow? I do follow quite a lot of panel makers. My favourite one has to be Cornfield Customs. And the reason I like following him, because he's got really, really good, clear guides. They are long, they are very, very technical, but if you want to make panels and go through all the ins and outs and how to shrink metal, when to stretch metal, all the different techniques for doing it. I mean, he's one of, there's plenty of them, but he's one of the best ones in terms of actual technical information. So again, it's mainly from watching videos, obviously buying the equipment, and then the biggest thing is obviously experience. You can watch 100 videos, but until you physically actually go and do it, you're not going to watch one video and make that panel in one go. It's not going to happen. And then even when you do know what to do and you know how to make the templates and you know how to, where it needs stretching, shrinking, where you need to bring shape out or undo it when you do cock the panel up. Normally, generally, if you go too far stretching something, it normally ends up in the bin pretty promptly after, and that can be 6 hours down the drain. So, it's trial and error, a lot of it. If I had to actually show you the pile, I wish I took a photo of it. If I had to show you the pile of sheet steel I had from all the Mark II COX Arch attempts, you'd weep, because I must have gone through about 400 quid's worth of sheet steel of just trying to pattern it, trying to do things in easier, different ways to obviously bring the time down. Because obviously when we make a panel, I like to cheat slightly. I don't mind spending hours and hours making a panel, but I'm always aware that the longer it takes me to make a panel, the more at the end of the day it's going to cost the customer. Obviously, it'd be nice if people would pay me like £600 for a DC2 arch. Realistically, I'm not going to sell it at that price. So again, it's always in the mind. So obviously, if I can think of a way of making a shortcut that doesn't jeopardise the finished article, but increases the speed that I can make the panel, the faster I can make an accurate panel, the cheaper it's basically going to come off to the customer, whether you're having the car welded by me or whether you're buying the panel to have it welded elsewhere. The next question I get asked a lot is, what sort of body shop should I be looking for if you can't do the job for me, or if you're not prepared to wait? Basically, look for any really, really good body shop. A good body shop, as far as I'm concerned, shows three things when they post a process of a car. They'll show you the car before, they'll show you during, and this is where you need to pay attention. Those during photos say more about the job they're doing than that finished one. I see no end of people advertising, oh, this is the before and this is after. I'm not lying to you. I could go take a sledgehammer and put it in the quarter of any of these cars, smash it to pieces and just pack it full of body filler and repaint it, and it'd look exactly like it did before. Because the problem is, where all the money's going isn't in, it is to aiming that finish, but it's all the work underneath that you don't see. And this is it. General rule of thumb is, I'll always go with, if you're getting a car restored, insist on actually being able to go there and view it in the stages as they're doing on it, or insist on getting a lot of photos of it. If you go back on, obviously all the photos I post on the Facebook pages for the cars, you get a small snapshot. We actually take generally, it could be anywhere from 3 to 1,000 photos depending on the size of jobs, and that's literally every single bit of the restoration and welding and fabrication. It's twofold reasons why I do that. One, it means I've got a means of justifying how many hours I've actually done to it. Secondly is, if there is an issue further down the line, let's just say an arch starts blistering a year and a half after I've painted it. Now it's under warranty with me because I do warranty my work. So obviously if it starts rusting there, I can go straight back into the photos. I've got all the detailed photos of what I cut out, what I welded, for example, how I repaired that area, what the steel was like before it was painted or epoxied. And that gives me a pretty good idea of what potentially could have been an issue there. And again, it's also great if the customer ever decides to part with the car, because you can turn around and say, look, here's my receipt, it was XYZ amount that I spent, and here's all the photo albums. And the strange thing is, even if they do lose all the photo albums, if you are interested, if you do see one of our cars that I've welded come up for sale, just send us the message, because if the customer's lost the photos, don't worry, I will have them stored on my hard drive on the office PC at home. So again, it only takes a couple of seconds, especially with modern phone technology. I mean, I use an iPhone 15 Pro Max. It's always within a couple of feet of me. Generally, I don't tend to cover them in weld splatter or drop them in the thinners bucket anymore. Has happened though. Yeah, it's expensive, but there's no excuse in today's thing to not be taking photos of your work. Obviously, again, that brings us on to cost. If you've had a really, really cheap quote from somewhere, bodywork basically boils down to time. So if you've gone to 5 different places, and just for example, and somebody's giving you a quote of 500 quid, but the average seems to be more like 2 grand, and then you've got one that's 3 grand, just ask yourself what you're going to be getting for that, because I guarantee you the cheapest one is going to want to do that job as fast and as simply as possible. They're probably going to do the bare minimum of welding. Yeah, it'll look great for a couple of years, but then you're going to be back and it's going to be, you're probably going to start seeing rust coming back through. Bodywork is one of those things, realistically, you're paying for time. If they're cutting time, then it's basically at the cost and the quality of the repair, and it's pretty much true across the board. So again, I would personally insist on getting photos of the work and actually looking at the photos of their past jobs. Again, we see no end of people, of past customers that are interested in cars that have been restored elsewhere. They'll say, oh, look, Aaron, I've seen this car. It's amazing. He wants 16 grand for it. And it's got a K20 and it looks amazing. And you say, right, well, it's been welded before. Can we get the photos if it's welded? I'm not joking. That guy that's selling the car sends my customer a photo, so about 4 photos. And they're from so far away, you can't tell what's been welded, how it's been done, how it's been obviously sealed afterwards to obviously keep the rust away. And, they don't have a receipt for it, funnily enough. And it's like, you potentially buying a massive money pit with that. Get the photos, look at the work, preferably go to somebody that's got a good reputation. And like I say, you can obviously, or like I say, if they can't prove the work they're doing in the welding, I would personally, or if it's too cheap a price, I would basically, that would set alarm bells off in my head. So again, each to their own, but you've been warned. It's quite a funny thing actually. I don't meet half of my customers. I'll speak to them on the phone. We'll have thousands of messages via Facebook Business Messenger or WhatsApp or whatever. Half my customers I never meet in person. Literally, they will send me the car in. They'll then pay their deposit or their first payment. And then obviously we work from there. I will let them know when the car's finished and they will take the car back. And, literally half the customers I have, I've never met. I know them by voice, I know them by name, obviously if they contact me, but yeah, never actually met them. So, quite a funny thing that. So yeah, just to carry on, so definitely an EP3, should hopefully have a DC5, which would be bonus. I've always got CRXs and DC2s on the go, so they're the most common car I do, they're the most common panels I sell, so they're going to be the first 2. After that, pretty much anything that anyone wants on the work list. Obviously, I'm not going to do these videos because they're going to be so thorough anyway. I'm not going to do them for every single job because obviously, it's a significant amount more time that I have to add. Bearing in mind, I'm not charging to obviously do the video. It's just going to be really nice for everybody who wants to learn to do it themselves and know how to fit my panels, know roughly what stages they should be doing to restore a car to a reasonably decent, preferably good standard, so it's going to last 10-15 years. So yeah, all being well, you should get all the really common ones anyway. And next thing, what I'm going to do with the business as we go on, obviously I want to start after this video series and after we've got through the next sort of 3-4 years worth of cars, really want to start really focusing on just the panel side of things. I'm 43 or 44. You know, I'm mid-40s now. By the time I'm 50, I don't want to be sort of crawling underneath cars or working on them under rotisserie, you know, breathing filler dust and every other type of conceivable bit of fallout from them, or even locked in the booth. So I would say over the next few years, I'm probably going to start pushing more towards the panel side. So eventually, you know, by the time I'm sort of early 50s, I can really start thinking about, you know, taking a back seat a bit more and just obviously making panels, selling the panels. You know, it's a lot easier just selling panels when we've got the orders. The annoying thing is we're not quite there yet. So obviously last year was absolutely mental with panels, you know, easily over 20 grand's worth sold just in DC2 panels. There are that many. But the problem is obviously they're going to start obviously selling less and less and less as they get more cars will get scrapped, more cars will get restored. So obviously we'll need to look into new ventures for it. The problem is there's just not enough panel work or panel sales at the minute for me to go solely onto it, and then vice versa. That's why we can't give up the cars. And again, it would be nice to wind down, you know, as I get older, you know, that 50 to 60s age stretch. I don't want to be, like I say, rolling under cars. It would be nice to obviously just be able to stand up, stay a lot cleaner, breathe a lot less nasty shit in. Because even when you wear masks and air feds and stuff, you still go home and you've still got dirt in your nose and you're covered in yuck, as you can tell. You know, we don't bother dressing nice here. Next question we always get asked, where am I located? The workshop is located in Horncastle, which is in Lincolnshire. So I'm pretty much that direction, 20 miles to Lincoln. 20 miles the other way is Skeg Vegas. Louth is 10 miles. Cadwell Park, very fortunate, Cadwell Park's only 6 miles up the road in the Wolds for us. I've got Boston, Lincolnshire, which is roughly 20 miles that way, and then Sleaford in that direction-ish. You know, that's sort of another 20, 25 miles. So we're pretty much smack bang on the edge of the Lincolnshire Wolds. It's really nice. So obviously I've rented this workshop now for this particular one in the rear that we're in now. We've had it for 7 years. I only chose it because A, I was in the front workshop. B, this is a much better part of the building because obviously I've got a fairly nice insulated roof. So in the winter and the summer, it keeps the heat out. It also keeps the heat in. It's very dry compared to other workshops I've had, because trust me, I've had some doozies. Again, all the walls are insulated. This was the last part of the existing building to actually be added, because obviously it was an old 50s bus station and they've added sections on over the years. If you actually look on the floor, that big concrete slab of that looks like it's been recently done. That was actually a rolling road, because if you look on my roof, if you can see all those little bits of their Formula 3 car racing slick rubbers, and the reason it's all up there is because there was a rolling road smack bang here, because this actual property used to all belong at one point to Andy Waters Motor Engineers, and this was his actual engine building room. It was the last bit of the building he added, and then he obviously sold it to our current landlord, one of his customers. And yeah, you know, it's a bonus being here as well. I've literally, my house, we bought our first house is literally only probably 600 metres down the road, so I can literally be here any time of day or night within sort of 2-3 minutes. So yeah, it's very rare we get anyone snooping around. We don't advertise what we do locally. Unless you know where we are, you know, people just drive past and think, you know, it's just a car wash outside, and that suits me fine. And obviously if the alarms do go off or we do get a ping on the CCTV, I can be up here within 2 minutes with the giant furball, who will be more than happy to nip someone if needs be. And yeah, before I completely forget to end this, Kevin CRX, it's a early spec UK 16 valve. It's only done about it's not even just about to turn 70,000 miles. Anyone wants it, it is for sale. So again, shoot me a message. He would like circa sort of 12 grand for it. We did annoyingly have a buyer who said he wanted it. So we got all the extra bits here, like the original steering wheel. Then he bailed out and changed his mind. And then 2 weeks later, he rang me back and said he changed his mind again. and then literally sent Kevin a deposit and then bailed on us again for the second time. And by that point, it's a case of, yeah. So it is sat here. It's probably going to be here for a few more weeks at least, I'd have thought. And then he's probably going to have to think about actually putting it into long-term storage, because so he has been a good customer, but I will draw the line soon enough because it is taking up space in here and it is space that I desperately need. So yeah, if you'd be interested in a Mark II, give me a shout, because it's probably going to be cheaper to buy this than to obviously restore one. And they say to actually get this car to immaculate condition, realistically it's not going to be anywhere near a job. Obviously the body's all done, there's no rust on it, it's low mileage, the engine base fairly clean. It is mainly just small odds and sods like the suspension could do with blasting in a lick of paint on it. The bushings are actually surprisingly good on it. Most of the rolling gear is surprisingly good. And again, it's just in the engine bay, it's completely original. Most of the brackets, slight rust on them, but it's no way near as bad as they normally are. So yeah, if you want it, give me a shout.